Okay, hello everybody. My name's Bobby Rubio. I am a Pixar story artist and also the director and writer of the SparkShort Float. And currently I am working on the movie Lightyear, which should be coming out, I believe, next year.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun.
We'll stay tuned for that. And Float was inspired by your son, Alex.
Yes, that's correct.
So let's start with your son. Tell us about him. How old is he now?
He is, he's 13 now. And he is a very fun and cool kid. Of course, he has his little quirks here and there because he has autism. But he's my son, and I love him very much. And the short was inspired by our relationship, and what had happened was when he was 2.5 years old, when he was first diagnosed, I didn't handle the diagnosis well. And
did you know what autism was at that point?
I did. You know what's funny is that not really. But you know when you start suspecting things and then the word starts popping up more clearly or more around you, because you start picking it up more because now you're attuned to like that word.
Yeah.
I do remember when my son was first diagnosed. At the time, I saw a lot of. I think Jenny McCarthy was her son was on the spectrum, and I saw she was constantly on TV as talking about it, and Holly Robinson, and I know also her son, and I believe Rodney Pete, her husband, wrote a book, and so there were little things here and there that started, coming into view to me, and also I was seeing a lot of Autism Speaks ads all over the place because it just seemed like there was like more children were getting diagnosed. I believe at the time when my son was diagnosed, it was 1 in 54 kids. And I think now it's 1 in 80. I mean, maybe it might have been 1 in 86, and now it's 1 in 54 or something like that.
Something like that. I remember there was a stat of 1 in 68. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
This was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So
what was that like for you? Like that moment that you found out something was different?
It was shocking. It was heartbreaking and disheartening. And I was lost, and I went into a depression. And I'd never been in a depression before. And so I was usually this happy-go-lucky guy. And then here comes my life is turned upside down because my son got this diagnosis and he was acting different. Well, here's another thing. My son is a twin. He's got a twin brother, Will.
Okay.
And the thing is, I started noticing Alex was different because Will, his twin brother, was reaching all of his milestones. He was talking, he was pointing, he was looking at you. Meanwhile, Alex was still babbling. He wasn't pointing at all. And it got to the point where I thought he was deaf, and we had to take him in to. And I will say, at the time, I'm ashamed to say this, but at the time, I was hoping that he would be deaf, because to me, it felt like, at least if he was deaf, I know how to tackle that. I've heard of that before. I thought I thought I knew what I could do with that. And autism just seemed like just a vast range that it could be anything,
Yeah.
And you're like, at least I could tackle deaf, I think. And that was my thinking at the time. I know that children who are deaf, I'm sure they have their own struggles that they go through. So I don't want to compare. I'm sure they don't at all. And but I'd like to think that families in the special needs community at least can recognize one each other, and we know we are going through our own struggles, and we also what's also good about the special needs community is there's a bunch of not only do we go through our struggles, but we also go through our triumphs, and I think because of the struggles, the triumphs are so much more. Like you celebrate them so much more. You value them so much more. So and I think families recognize that. We know. We run into each other and like, yeah, I know. I've been there.
Right.
So
there's a crucial moment in the short film, and I hope I'm not spoiling anything by saying this. I don't know how much I can reveal, but for people who haven't seen it, they can watch it on Disney Plus. But there's
yes.
this moment in the film when the father and the son are at the park, and the father's having a hard time controlling his son, and finally drags him away and says, well, he yells and he says, "Why can't you just be normal?"
Uh-huh.
Was this inspired by a specific moment in your life?
I've been in that situation, and I mean, again, I'm ashamed to say this, but like there was a moment when Alex was screaming, and he was like, and he was just being himself. It's my own fault that I took it that far. I think it was just because of liking the short. It was a building on frustration that it just escalated to that point, and it got to the breaking point. And I didn't, although I didn't say, "Why can't you be normal?" like in the short. I mean, I just yelled at him, but like, I think that line is powerful in the short because it's the only thing that's said in the short, and it encapsulates everything about what the father's thinking at the time and feeling at the time. And actually, the subtext is it's not why can't you be normal, Alex? It's why can't I be normal? That's the subtext. He's yelling, why me? Why this? Why me? And but that's the subtext. But I mean, it comes across as he's yelling at his son, why can't you be normal? But really what he means is why can't I be normal? I wanted this life. I wanted this regular, typical life. And now it's this. And this father has to come to realize that this is his new normal. And this is what he's got to deal with. And he's got to come to love it and love his son and accept him and his son and everything to get back to a normal status again. His type of normal, his own version of normal.
How did you finally accept your son's autism?
It took years. It wasn't 5 minutes like the short. I will be honest. It took a while. I went through therapy, and I think therapy helped. I think time heals. I think also seeing my son progress and seeing all the triumphs that I've talked about that he has overcome. Because now my son talks now. He still does. Still is quirky though. He doesn't. He's not that. He's still working on his social interacting with other people. He still stims, but that's going to be him. That's just him, and that's fine. It's really more me that has to accept that. And I think through the years, I have accepted it.
So, going back to the struggle you had kind of accepting your son's diagnosis and the years of denial and, grief is a really common experience for parents who are dealing with receiving a diagnosis. So, what was that like for your relationship with your wife?
It was a very difficult and tough time because my wife was actually, she handled the diagnosis like a champ. She was great. and I, to give you a quick story, it was around Christmas when it happened, and I hid in my room, under the bed, in our bedroom, under the covers. And I remember my brother came over to visit, and he's playing with his nephews, and he's like, "Hey, Bobby, what's going on? Why aren't you playing with Alex? Aren't you out here?" And I told him, and he's like, "But you still got to play with him." Like, you know what I mean? And so, and like even my brother was cool with it. It was all me. But to make the story continue, the funny thing is we live in Oakland, and we have this, we recently moved here, and we recently added security sound system to the house. So if a burglar ever came in, alarms would go off. And so one night, in my deepest, darkest depression, I'm laying there and the alarm goes off. And my first instinct was to run into my son's room, to Alex's room. And I ran in there, and I wanted to make sure that my son was okay. Because I love my son. No matter what, I love my son, and I wanted to make sure that he was good. And yeah, even despite my depression, I jumped out of that bed.
Right.
And what I found out was it was just the window just blew open. That's all, and it went off. But I'm grateful because it showed where my heart was.
Right.
And I knew that, okay, I got to get help. It's not that I didn't love my son. It's something's wrong. I just needed help to change my mentality and my way of thinking.
You've been watching Autism Knows No Borders. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Also, we'd love to hear from you, so let us know what you think in the comments section. Click here to watch this interview in its entirety. You can also find us on your favorite podcast app. Tune in each week for engaging conversations of how people across the globe are inspiring change and building community. Thanks for watching. Take care.